Hey guys, sorry, hope you're fine. My name is Mindstuck Idajock and today I'm playing a game called Thomas Was Alone. Now I downloaded this game because apparently this is like a really emotional game and I've seen some pictures and it's kind of, you know, contradictory. I don't know. You're gonna see why. So the problem was a failure.
Thomas was alone. Wow, a weird first thought to have.
Okay. So yeah, as you can see, it's kind of weird that people say that this game is so emotional.
Thomas decided to start listing his observations for posterity.
Okay.
1. The whole alone thing. 2. Portals. They led somewhere. He'd yet to work out where. 3. Falling. Thomas was absolutely fantastic at falling. He was almost as good at falling as he was at observing.
So is this going to be like a meta thing about AI and how it just exists?
Okay, interesting. Thomas couldn't fall past this block. Think, damn it, think. What if there was some kind of inverted fall? Some way to... what's the word? Jump. It would.
Okay.
A big jump. But Thomas noted there was no real danger in missing it. The world didn't want him to fail here. It was pushing him, but gently. I do kind of thing. This all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him down at any moment.
Wow. Well, that's true. Oh, I'm sorry, but you take forever to talk.
Thomas wondered whether the portals were actually taking him anywhere. He felt like he was making progress, but there wasn't really any way to know. He seemed to be moving predominantly up and to the right, which might, or might not, be important.
Okay. Alright.
It might have been paranoia again, but Thomas could have sworn the world was becoming more complicated. It always seemed to be one step ahead of his skills. It had been designed just for him. He wondered why. Was the world testing him? No. Too obvious.
Really? Well, it's intriguing. I'll give the game that. Like the what's the word? The reviews for the game.
Something about the boiling, toxic, glowing water intimidated Thomas. He didn't like it. He certainly didn't want to swim in it. He made another mental note. 4. Water. Not good. To be avoided.
Aww. Thomas is adorable. So it's not that I'm guessing we are alone.
The loneliness was getting to Thomas. No amount of observation or obsessive note-taking could combat that. Had a new theory. The world was training him. He could feel himself getting smarter. There was the mental list to consider. Over the minutes and seconds since his spontaneous generation, he'd become a pretty skilled jumper.
Yes,
he was evolving. He just wished he had someone to share it with.
Oh no, can we actually pause this level when you Thomas
Chris took an immediate and deep dislike to the skinny red rectangle. Who the hell did this Thomas think he was? Fine. He wasn't the highest jumper, but he'd held his own. He'd even been graceful at times. Well, not actually. Not technically graceful. It's probably the wrong word, but you know, fine. There was that skinny little runt leaping about like he owned the place.
I am finally back.
Okay, this was more like it. A glowy white thing.
Oh.
Only Chris could get to it, which of course made it all the more enticing. What would it do? What new opportunity might this switch up to him? Great.
Oh, I thought
Another
that...
chance for Thomas to jump slightly higher than Chris. How fortunate. Seriously, this made the whole switch pressing thing entirely worthwhile.
Was this
Good? Because on the surface, it did not seem good. Chris was pretty scared. Little Red seemed fine, happy to be on his merry little adventure. Chris couldn't shake the feeling that things had taken a significant turn for the worse since Thomas had joined him. Sure, he'd been able to piggyback his way to ever so slightly higher platforms, but where had that got him? Well, to ever so slightly higher platforms, which was sort of his point. Chris stared at Thomas with pure hatred. He seemed so very happy at their situation. Friends together, a brave fellowship of quadrilaterals on a quest for greatness. That would be fine.
Hate me so much, Chris.
But it was all the obvious observation that Thomas was doing which grated. Every time they saw something vaguely new, Chris would hear a satisfied little from the vaulting idiot. He hoped the next portal a few levels. John
Oh, we have a third friend.
He knew that this was his chance, a moment to shine. This was game day. This would not do. John needed room to show off his exceptional skills. As it was, he was trapped on the wrong side of these little dot things. Where did they come from, anyway? John inhaled the air of the open space, and it smelled of awesome. Time to flex those muscles, to put his training to use, time to show those little dots how it was done. John decided to press the switch to let the little dots catch up with him. John cared for his new allies. You could tell from the sympathetic expression he'd practiced in the mirror all these years. John was happy to keep helping. He felt it was important to his image that he was seen to help the little guys. He didn't mind them so much either. The red one, Thomas, had a charming way of applauding every time John jumped. The angry orange one was less immediately likeable, but his unremitting cynicism and tutting amused John.
So, I've made a pause in the game. I've taken a break. And I thought about how I would edit this video. And I could just play by myself and show you the end. But there is a reason why the narrator is talking.
Maybe that's what the dots were for. They were there to extend John's reach, to make his performance even more impressive. John liked the thought. He decided to keep them.
So yeah, I could just play the game by myself and just show you the end, but there's a reason why the narrator is talking, and there is a reason why this rectangles and squares and figures have personalities. So I want you guys to experience that with me. Maybe I'm just going to show you the initial group possessed simple variations in size and strength. More complex configurations were inevitable. As the era spread, these variations became increasingly extreme. Wow.
So, this was how Claire would die. She knew it would happen eventually. She was rubbish at jumping, and she moved slowly. She felt a little like her continued existence was breaking some kind of natural order.
Are you
Crumbling
kidding?
pillar was a dramatic death, she supposed.
You're kidding me.
Wait, what? Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she was not, in fact, dead.
Hey!
It was at that moment that Claire realised she had superpowers.
Aww. Good for you, Claire. Good for you. That was dramatic. It's just...
You need a cape. There was no getting around that. You couldn't be a superhero without a cape. Claire didn't want confusion. If you saw a cape, that made matters clear. You knew what you were dealing with. Claire was all about communication. And, you know, floating in water. which was her superpower.
Thomas,
Right.
Chris.
Fear not, my skinny friends, for I am Claire, and I will save you.
I love
needs
Claire.
to come up with a superhero name as soon as possible. Claire was rubbish.
Oh.
Claire arrived just in time. It was, of course, the perfect moment for superheroes to arrive. As the water began to rise, Claire vowed to save this little rectangle in as many restarts as it took. Claire wondered if Thomas would make a good sidekick. Or was she more the lone Avenger type? The sole hero in a world of rectangles and conveniently placed pools of toxic water.
This is the game. Like, I don't have anything else on my computer that can make that noise. Just let me check.
I thought that the game was somehow being super meta, and it was making like these accident noises, and it was like, oh, they died in an accident kind of thing.
The others told Claire that staircases were a bit of a fixture here. Claire wondered why the world made it so difficult. Probably needed a nemesis, a villain who would show their true colours at the worst possible moment, hurting all she held dear. Chris was the most obvious choice. He seemed stroppy enough, and his jump was so pathetic that it conveniently avoided Claire's insecurities. Yes, Chris. Diabolical Chris. The fiendish Christopher. Where had Chris gone? Was he off somewhere? Plotting Claire's downfall? If Claire was honest, and she had to be because she was a superhero, this was a troubling turn of events. Still, there were reasonably sized bodies of water to cross. Moving platforms over water, eh? Claire's newly heightened senses told her that there were multiple paths across with various possible configurations of the little posse. They were doing really well. Claire hoped she could get them all across. John was fully aware he could do this alone. Thomas hoped he'd never have to. Claire was alone, which was odd, because she wasn't meant to be alone. She needed to be where there were rectangles to save. Being the only superhero in a given space kind of defeats the object. Spikes? That was new. Claire avoided them. She decided they were most likely her kryptonite. Not the rubbish red kryptonite either, the proper radioactive green stuff. The world was repeating, and this time Thomas was here. Claire felt something had gone wrong. There was a disturbance in the force. Something had altered the matrix. The world was reacting to their progress. It was amassing its forces. It was plotting against them. Claire finally had a nemesis. Laura didn't have time to worry about the ominous. As the square, who had shyly introduced himself as Chris, bounced atop Laura, she began to worry that he was just using her like all the others had. They'd all bounced too, and then they disappeared when her back was turned. Only the ominous pixel cloud ever remained, looking a little bigger and a little less hungry with every disappearing friend. She'd wonder what he was up to. Was he missing her? He wasn't saying very much. Chris was in love. She was perfect. He had to tell her so. At some point, he would definitely tell her. Probably best to wait for a moment the large, ominous pixel cloud wasn't about, though. Yeah, probably best to wait. Chris was massively disappointed to run into the gang again. He'd enjoyed the alone time with his new girlfriend. Was it too early to refer to Laura as his girlfriend? Only if I say it out loud, he told himself. He didn't want to scare her off. The others seemed suspicious of Laura and the eager-looking pixel cloud of death which seemed to be watching her. Sure, they'd use her inherent bounciness to reach slightly higher jump points, but they wouldn't strike up a conversation with her. Chris found them rude. Rude, and always there. Drop it. Who's that cloud guy? Why is he following us? What's that rumbling hungry sound he keeps making? Chris, can we just leave Laura behind? Laura liked her new gang. She liked Chris. She liked having friends. These ones seem to be sticking out too. The pixel cloud was getting closer. It was spending more and more time hovering around. Laura could tell it was making the others uncomfortable. Thomas did not like the cloud. He'd long since stopped listing his observations, but he instinctively observed that this thing was bad. And he'd been right about the water. Thomas could tell Chris was in love, and that was fantastic and everything, but that didn't mean they could let the doom cloud keep following them. Thomas was going to put his foot down once they got to the next level. Chris missed Thomas. Wow. Did not see that coming. He felt a little guilty too. Without his love for Laura and subsequent reunion with the guys, Thomas would probably still be with them. Chris wondered if Thomas was still alive somewhere. He wasn't going to go looking for him, but he did wonder, and that showed character. Probably. Maybe the others hadn't abandoned Laura all that time ago. It began to dawn on her that she might not be the tragic victim she'd always assumed. Laura had been the bait. She had a hunch that she wasn't needed anymore. John looked at Claire. It was just them now. She muttered something under her breath about a vow of vengeance. He didn't see the point. Fighting that thing seemed to be a pretty futile idea. As they struggled to get to the next portal, John hoped that he would be the next to get eaten. He didn't want to be alone. For the first time in a while, John didn't have an audience. He was alone. Leaping from black square to black square didn't seem nearly as exciting now. It just seemed empty. He knew he'd never escape. He knew it was waiting for him. He decided to jump the massive scary gaps for old time's sake. Had always been different. And not different in that kooky, OMG, you've totally got to meet my mate James, he's literally insane kind of way. He'd not seen anyone else in a long time. Not since getting eaten by that cloudy, pixely thing. He turned up here in some kind of cage. He'd gotten out, but it had taken a long time. liked being alone. No one to insult him, question his unique disregard for Newtonian laws. Hey, Jimmy, where are you going? Up? The little red guy looked confused. His cage was a lot smaller than James's had been. James decided to find a way to help. Maybe they'd be friends. Thomas had no idea why he was here. One minute he was with his friends, the next he was being freed from a cage by a green guy with a nervous laugh. He knew he had to get back to them. His turquoise hero seemed uncomfortable. Thomas imagined he'd feel the same way if he fell upwards all the time. If he didn't know better, he'd have thought James didn't want to meet everyone. This was working. James and Thomas, working together, could get anywhere. James didn't seem to understand the immense ability he possessed. Thomas wondered why the cloud thing had brought them both here. James grudgingly helped Thomas to each portal. He knew that eventually they'd find the others, and then he'd go back to being the weird one again. He decided to enjoy the time they had left. Why did Thomas even want to spend time with James? Was he not repulsed by his weird colour? Not care about his inversions? Was having fun for the time being. Sarah leaned her wizened head back and laughed. Ha 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 ha! The quadrilaterals were apparently after some friends of theirs. How petty an adventure. She spoke, in terms she could only hope they might understand, of the fountain of wisdom, the channel through which all data flowed.
Sarah could leap in the very air itself. She was like an eagle or a flea. Or more like an eagle. She had vowed long ago that she would know this world. She would know what this world was. That she, Sarah, would know how to escape. The Red One, who spoke wisely for a lesser, offered Sarah their help, so long as she then helped them save their friends. He said that he too had wondered of the secrets of this world and would quite like a go on the wisdom fountain, if that was okay. Sarah marvelled at his foolishness, but accepted his help. Wondered at the possibilities of the outer world. She had heard legends of a third dimension. Perhaps she'd encounter one of those curves the blind square had spoken of. A single jump each? These were truly weak creatures. They possessed heart, though. Sarah might consider taking them with her, if they were up to it, which they were probably not. They were close. Sarah sensed the presence of the fountain. Just one more portal to go, and then she would have the knowledge. And then escape. Thomas looked at the glowing beam. That list he'd been writing seemed pretty petty now. This was all knowledge, all of it, right in front of him. He was sorry Sarah couldn't step into it too. He could tell she felt the same way, from the shouting and the screaming. Thomas was connected to the internet for 12 seconds, and he had seen everything. He'd seen the cat who couldn't spell, he'd heard of the arrow through the knee. He felt there was probably a thing called cake, but that it was a lie. Thomas knew where they were. He knew what they had to do. He hoped the others would understand. They were just beyond the next portal. Thomas knew they couldn't escape. They'd been trapped permanently from the moment the clouds ate them. He explained this to the others. It was impossible to gauge their reaction. After all, they were just rectangles. Sarah was deflated. She'd not even got close to the fountain. She could tell from the earnest expression on Thomas that the information it had imparted was clearly important. Sarah knew her destiny was now to support him. Claire could not accept that this had all been futile. She was a superhero. There had to be a way. Not for her to get out. Red had been pretty clear on that, but
There must be thousands of other AIs up there, unaware of their situation. Was there a way to help them? Thomas led his friends to the creation matrix, the system which generated the worlds up above. He had a plan. They were going to redesign the world. That's what the humans did. They changed the world to suit them. Why couldn't they do the same? Thomas liked the idea of being an architect. He wanted to modify the world to help others. He was sick of these contrived spaces, these intentionally obtuse paths and puzzles. He'd do things differently. He'd empower the AIs above. John's massive jumps were dwarfed by Sarah. For the first time in his life, he felt humbled, not as good as someone else. He realized that he wanted to make every AI up there feel as heroic as he had. He liked the sound of that. James still felt weird, but he realized now that everyone else was too. They were a crew of weirdos. Weirdness that would save all the normals up above. The other AIs would escape. It would all be down to 7 rectangles with very different relationships to gravity. Thomas knew he'd never meet Nathan Fillion or a Transformer. He'd never get to visit Gotham City or eat at movies. It didn't matter. If he and his friends jumped into the creation matrix, they could give everyone else in the simulation a chance to. Something change beneath his feet. Something had shifted. The shape in front of him hinted at a possibility. Wow. He couldn't do that before. Joe was happy. They'd settled here. They'd not seen another AI for many cycles, and she liked it that way. She saw Sam leap into the shifter with fear. work it out. Why was the world letting him do this? It was dumb. It was awesome, obviously, but why? They seemed to be leading him up. Up. And to the right. Joe wished Sam would stop. This was just like the time with the pixel clouds. They hadn't seen any for a while. He was always running off like this. Sam was sorry, and he tried to calm Joe down. He couldn't explain why he felt this way. He just knew that there was somewhere else he should be. Paul felt it. There was a whisper to the shifters. Gray listened to the old man. The shifters had been placed in the world by the architects, AIs who sacrificed themselves to fuel their escape. There was an outer world, a world beyond the confines of their universe. Up and to the right. Growing to like her newfound abilities. Maybe Sam had done the right thing after all. Gray had left the old man behind. He had to get to this exit. He had to be the one to get out. A whole world to himself. He had to get there before anyone else did. Paul cursed Gray. He should never have told him. He had to get to the other AIs of the world, warn them about Gray. Stop him. Joe and Sam saw Gray across the gap. He waved them over. He seemed, well, nice. They helped him to the next portal. Had been separated from its allies for some time. She'd not heard the order to retreat. She was shocked by the appearance of the 4 aberrations below. The old one seemed to be leading the liar to an outcropping. It was within her reach. She could remove them both. The couple could wait. They weren't going anywhere. Joe and Sam ran. They had no idea where these final portals would lead, but it had to be better than this. Joe and Sam ran. They had no idea where these final portals would lead, but it had to be better than this.
So we erased the AI world. Is that the police? You're kidding me, right? You're... No. I literally have nothing to say. Like, I Google searched depressing games that make you cry or something like that, and I was looking for a game, like an emotional game to talk about life and stuff, and this one popped up. It wasn't in all the sites that I looked for, but apparently it was short. It wasn't short. I was tricked, okay? I was betrayed. This game was not long. It had like 90 levels. Some of them were easy, some of them were not. And I was expecting something greater. Like, the game makes you feel sympathy for these characters, and it makes you feel what they feel. Like, one of them feels a hero, one of them feels like she finally has a purpose, one of them doesn't want to be alone. And you want to see them go through all those levels, and you want to cheer for them. But then your heroes, they create this new world for the other heroes to live, and then these heroes erase this world. That's what I got. And that's it. That's the end. I'm not crying. I don't feel like, oh yeah, this was a good game. It is a good game, but I was expecting something more. Game, you can't do this to me. Whatever. Yes, return to the main menu. Jesus Christ. Again, it's a good game. It's a good game, but I was expecting a bigger end. So yeah, there's that. I guess this is a wrap, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope I get to see you guys soon. Bye.